Greetings, Jay Stone here, Cap and Ball Fanatic Channel. Well, as you can see here at the home base, winter arrived all at once. But luckily, I filmed the shooting sequences for this video a few days before this nonsense began. And what we're going to be doing in today's video is using my 1851 Navy by Pieta silver finish called Old Silver. We're going to start the process of backing up from 15 yards sequentially all the way hopefully to 75 yards. So at some point down the road here pretty soon, I'm capable of accurately making the Wild Bill Hickok Davis Tutt dual shot of 75 yards. Well, we probably won't get there today, but we're going to get a long ways. Stay with us and see how we do. So before we get started with our shooting, let's talk a little bit about today's video and what I'm trying to accomplish over this video, and probably one more when the weather lets up and gives us a chance to do it. So of course the famous duel between Wild Bill Hickok and Davis Tutt is my inspiration. I've always been sort of a history fan of Wild Bill Hickok, and in Springfield, Missouri in 1865, former friends Davis Tutt and Wild Bill Hickok got into a skirmish about I think it was, some say it's over a woman and some say it's over a gambling debt, where Davis Tutt snatched Wild Bill Hickok's pocket watch as collateral to pay off this debt. And Hickok warned him, you know, if I ever see you wearing my watch on the streets, we're going to have a fight. And, you know, back in those days, reputation and respect was everything, and that would have been an ultimate sign of disrespect for him to wear Hickok's watch. Well, the day goes by, and on the town square in Springfield, Missouri, of course, Tutt is wearing his watch. So they square off for a duel at 75 yards. Hickok with his 51 Navy, and I'm not sure what Tutt was firing. It was a cap and ball of some sort in those days, 1865. Both fired approximately at the same time. Rumor has it that Hickok shot either one-handed or used his arm to prop his gun. I've seen pictures of both ways. I've seen it described both ways. Anyways, Tutt missed. Hickok hit him at 75 yards between the ribs in the heart and killed him pretty much instantly. Tutt's last words when he was hit was, "I'm killed, boys." So he knew he was dead right away. So that's the gunfight that ultimately has become the template for every quick draw gunfight in a Western movie since Western movies were a thing, starting in 1903. They didn't happen very much in the Wild West, but you know, Hollywood and whatnot, and the movies would make us think that that's what went on all the time. And it has always been a part of my bucket list to make that 75-yard shot one-handed with an 1851 Navy. Well, I've never had an opportunity to do that here because I didn't have a big enough target, big enough for my old eyes to see, and I didn't really realize the room I needed to get there. Well, now I can do them both. I have the target, the big yellow that we've talked about in other videos, and I now have the room to be able to make the 75-yard shot. Yeah, well, at least shoot 75 yards. Whether I can actually make the shot or not is what we're here to figure out. So in this video, I'm going to start the process that I use, that I've been taught, of working my way from 15 yards back to 75 yards to see if, probably in the next video, to see if I can actually put a shot on the target at 75 yards and make that steel ring. Now let me say about this. I don't fancy myself a great shot. I don't fancy myself a crack shot. I don't fancy myself any of those things, right? I'm adequate with a cap and ball revolver, and I practice a lot. And typically when you see me shooting, I'm shooting from 25 yards to 15 yards. And you know, in that little range right there, I'm pretty good. I've shot some competitions at the Grand Valley Cap and Ballers back to 50, and I've done okay from time to time. Sometimes out of 10 shots, I'd score in the 60s and the 70s and maybe even close to 80. And sometimes out of 10 shots, I score 10 or 11. So it just sort of depends on the day and the gun and the load and the weather and how I'm feeling about it and whether I can even see the target or not at my age. So I'm not doing this because I fancy myself as a crack shot. I frankly don't know if I'll be able to even hit the thing from 75 yards. But I'm going to bring you along with me. So as we do this, we're going to start shooting at 15 yards in this video. And my process is when I break in any new gun is that I shoot from 15 first until I put 5 of 6 consistently on the target or on steel, and then I'll back up to 20 or 25 yards, and I'll stand there and keep shooting until I can put 5 or 6, more than once, probably 2 or 3 times on a target. And once I can do that, then I'll back up a little further. And so that's the process we're going to use. We're going to use my old silver Pieta 1851 Navy. I'm using the silver one because I like it. It's pretty, but also, if I only had the ivory grips on this one, we would do that on a sort of in honor of Wild Bills. So I don't know how far we're going to get back today. This process is going to take us at least 2 videos. This is part 1. We're going to move back quite a ways, and I'm not going to sugarcoat this video. I'm going to let you see when I miss. I had some troubles in this video, either troubles because I was off that day, or because it was 30 degrees and my fingers were cold, or because I just don't learn from my mistakes, and I kept aiming at the same spot and kept missing in the same way. But I'm going to show you what the painful looking process is that I went through to get us back to the range that we get back in this video. We're going to start at 15 yards. First shots with our 1851 Navy silver. So let's take another shot at the paper target here. Third cylinder on paper. All right, so you saw as shooting at the paper targets, those 3 cylinders, I had 2 5-shot cylinders. I had turned around and fired at one of the steel targets in the middle of that. But we were able to put I was able to put 13 of 16 on my paper targets from 15 yards. But I still didn't think I was ready to move all the way back, so I moved back about 4 or 5 yards to shoot at some steel targets. Let's see how that goes. So we're starting our way back from 15. We're going back to about 18 or 19 for the next round, and then we'll see if we go on from there. All right, cold and bitter day, but we still shooting. So let's shoot at some steel targets here. Little round one. Big yellow. All right, so you saw the steel targets went pretty well. So that's 18 out of 21 shots at either 15 or 17, 18 yards. So I think I've got myself feeling good from that distance. So now it's time to move back. And now's when the fun begins. And we're going to be shooting at Big Yellow, which is a steel target that is 11 yards behind those orange steel targets that you just saw me shooting at. So we're going to move back from 17 yards on steel to 36 yards, and we're going to see how we do. And now the fun begins, because I start to forget where the target is. Okay, so here we are at the 25-yard marker. I'm going to shoot Big Yellow down there. I mentioned earlier that you were going to see some pretty inaccurate shooting today as I adjusted with this particular revolver to the length. So instead of subjecting you to all that sound, what you're seeing is of these first 13 shots out of 3 cylinders, one with 6, one with 4, and the second one with 6, I only hit it 3 times. As I struggled to find where my point of aim was going to be with this particular round, I got to thinking about it, and I realized that I shoot a little left. So about the midway through that last cylinder, I found it. Well, it's hard to show you all that shooting at the beginning there, where I sort of sped it up to get through it. But about halfway through that third cylinder, I sort of remembered that I shoot left, so I started aiming to the right side of the target, and wouldn't you know it, I hit eight out of the next 9 from 36 yards, which is the kind of shooting that I'm looking for before I'll move myself back. So, yaha, bravo. I found that. Now, let's move back to 41 yards. We're going to go back to the 30-yard marker on the ground. If we add the 11 for Big Yellow, that puts us at 41 yards. And let's see if I learned anything from the 36-yard shooting. If we're paying attention, probably not. We're moving gradually back with an 1851 Navy, and now we're going to be shooting from 41 yards. And the 30-yard mark is about that blue bucket sitting in my woodshed right there. So let's see what happens here. So it's amazing what you can forget in 20 minutes, but just like I did at 36 yards, I started out aiming at the dead center of the target, and I proceeded to miss 8 of my first 10 shots, all left. Then I got to thinking about it, and suddenly, being the genius that I am, I remembered that maybe I shoot to the left, so maybe I ought to aim up the right side of the target, and guess what? Missed. Boom. So 5 out of 6 at 41 yards. Not bad here on a January day in Michigan. All right, so let's talk about what happened in today's video. Again, I'm trying to work my way back by being consistent at least 5 out of the 6, consistently at any distance before I back up another 5 yards or another 10 yards. We're on our way from 15 yards, ultimately, hopefully someday back to 75 yards, where I don't know if I can put 5 out of 6 on it, but you know what? I'd take 1. That would be perfect, and then we could all throw some confetti and have a good time. But in today, that's the process that I use to learn to shoot distance. And well, these aren't really that long in distances. I've shot, as I've said before, I've shot many 50-yard competitions, some pretty good, some not so good. But the challenge of this cap and ball hobby is each one of these revolvers shoots differently. Each one of these revolvers has a different point of aim, at least in my experience. It's going to depend on how I'm feeling that day, the load that I'm using, how the wind is blowing, whether I can see well that day. I mean, I don't have any problem with my eyes. I'm just old. And in this particular case, it was 30 degrees and I was freezing, which is no excuse because as you saw, once I figured out that I tend to shoot left. And if you've watched my videos for a long time, whether it's the gun or whether it's me or whatever it is, I tend to shoot a little left of center when I'm at any range. So once I figured out, both at 36 yards, that if I aim up the right side of the target, I can hit it. All of a sudden, I'm hitting 8 or 9 out of 10 in a row, which lets us move back to 41 yards, where I proceeded, as you saw, to go hit the target twice in my first 10 shots. And then I remembered from a half an hour earlier, when I was still shooting at 36 yards, that maybe I ought to aim up to the right side of the target. And wouldn't you know it, I hit 7 of the last 8 at 41 yards going forward. So here's what's to come. Now that winter's arrived all at once, we're going to be on a little bit of a standstill. But the next video in this series, which won't be my next video, I'll have some other things coming out before the weather breaks here a little bit. I'm not going to wait till spring, but I need to be able to walk out there and see through the blizzard. The next time we do this, we'll start we'll start at 50 yards, and then we'll go back to 60 yards, and then we'll culminate with the 75-yard shot, assuming I can learn to hit the target 5 out of 6 at 50 and 5 out of 6 at 60. And if I can't, then we'll have a part 3. I will certainly share it with you. I'm not in this to try to prove that I'm some kind of whiz shot. I don't believe that about myself. I'm just a dude who loves cap and ball revolvers, who loves to challenge himself and try new things. Listen, if you have any questions or comments, put them in the comments below. I hope you liked the video today. If you enjoyed it, if you found any value in it, hit that thumbs up button and help us out here. If you aren't already a subscriber, please subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about us. Share us on social media. And we'll be back and see if we can get back to 75 yards, where I can successfully make the Wild Bill Hickok Davis Tutt dual shot. And then we can all throw confetti, raise a toast, and celebrate, and then we'll move on to the next challenge. So I hope you had a good time. I know I did. We'll see you again on down the road the next time.